Ever had someone push your buttons just to watch you break? Want to shut down rudeness without saying a single curse word? Here's the secret. The calmest person in the room often holds the most power. Let's be real. Some people thrive on disrespect. They live for that moment you snap, lose your cool, or raise your voice. It's their game, their fuel. But here's the truth they don't want you to know. When you lose your temper, they win. The real strength, it's not in yelling back or trying to out-insult them. It's in staying calm and delivering a comeback so unexpected, so clear and controlled that it stops them cold. No screaming, no emotional chaos, just carefully chosen words that hit where it hurts and make them wish they never messed with you. In this video, I'm going to arm you with powerful, intelligent comebacks that shut disrespect down fast. Say these lines and you'll stop letting rude people walk all over you. You'll walk away not only with dignity, but with the upper hand. By the way, if you love deep, thought-provoking ideas around stoicism, self-mastery, and handling life with wisdom, you're going to love my free Sunday newsletter. Each week I share unfiltered insights, controversial truths, and powerful strategies you won't hear anywhere else. And yes, it's 100% free. Want in? The link's in the description. And if you're a brand looking to partner with content that speaks to a high-intent, thoughtful audience, check the email below. Let's create something meaningful. Now, let's get into it. You're entitled to your opinion, and I'm entitled to ignore it. This line? It's gold, pure power. It's one of the most underrated comebacks you can use when someone comes at you with arrogance, judgment, or unsolicited criticism. Why? Because it's not emotional. It's not defensive. It's just a simple, quiet reminder. Your words don't control me, and let me tell you, nothing gets under a rude person's skin more than being dismissed. That's what they hate most. See, people who talk down to you, they're not trying to help. They're not even sure they're right. What they want is control. They want to dominate the conversation, feel superior, and make you feel small. But when you don't flinch, when you don't defend, when you simply shrug and move on, you take their power away. I had to learn this the hard way. I used to feel the need to explain myself. If someone mocked my ideas, I'd argue back. If they dismissed my work, I'd list all the reasons why it mattered. But then one day, it clicked. I was working on a big project, something I'd poured weeks into with late nights, constant obstacles, and a lot of heart. I shared it with an old friend. His response? A smirk and a snide. That's a waste of time. You really think anyone's going to care? The old me would have defended myself, but instead I said nothing. Why? Because I finally realized, why waste energy justifying your dreams to someone who's never built anything? So there I was, standing in front of someone who expected me to break, waiting for me to defend myself, to justify my dream, to plead for his approval. But instead of playing into his game, I simply smiled and said, "You're entitled to your opinion, and I'm entitled to ignore it." Then, without missing a beat, I changed the subject. And you know what? Silence. He had nothing left to say. He was expecting drama. He was expecting a defensive reaction. But by calmly brushing him off, I flipped the script. I removed his power completely. And I know, deep down, he felt it. Why this comeback hits so hard? This one-liner works like magic. Not because it's aggressive, but because it's disarming. You're not shouting, you're not throwing shade. You're just calmly showing that you don't need their approval, and that realization stings. It's subtle but powerful. Disrespectful people thrive on your emotional reaction. That's their fuel. They want to see you flinch, argue, or defend yourself. But this line tells them loud and clear, "You can talk, but I don't have to care. And trust me, nothing frustrates arrogant people more than being ignored, especially when they were trying to tear you down." When should you use this line? Let's be honest. There are always going to be people who don't believe in what you're doing. Here's exactly when to use this comeback. When someone mocks your career path or dreams, chasing a creative or unconventional goal. People love to say, "That'll never work." Just smile and say, "You're entitled to your opinion and I'm entitled to ignore it." When a toxic family member judges your life choices, sometimes it's the people closest to us who feel the most entitled to criticize. Use the same line. Calm, direct, undeniably powerful. When a coworker belittles your ideas at work, if someone tries to shut you down in a meeting or act superior, don't waste time arguing. Just deliver the line and move on. The hard truth few will tell you: most of the people who criticize you aren't doing any better than you. In fact, the louder they are, the more insecure they usually are inside. They talk over you, mock your decisions, and question your moves because they're terrified you might be right. That's what makes this response so impactful. It reminds them that you don't need their permission to keep going. Final thought. There's an old saying, "I live by a lion doesn't lose sleep over the opinions of sheep, and neither should you." So the next time someone throws shade, questions your worth, or tries to make you feel small, don't defend, don't debate. Just smile and say, "You're entitled to your opinion, and I'm entitled to ignore it." Then carry on with your day, knowing full well that their opinion holds zero power over your life. Just like I learned to ignore unnecessary criticism, there's another powerful way to handle people who try to bring you down, especially those loud, overconfident types who think they're the smartest in the room. Take Ryan, for example. He was loud, brash, and full of himself, always trying to dominate conversations with sarcastic jabs. In moments like that, you really only have two choices. Either let them get away with it, or shut them down completely. I chose the latter. I smiled and said, "Ryan, if I had $1 for every smart thing you said, I'd be broke." The room fell silent. One guy even choked on his drink. Another whispered, "Oh, damn." And Ryan? He just sat there, shifting, uncomfortably, struggling to find a comeback. But there was nothing left to say. That's when it hit me. Being loud doesn't mean being smart. And if you call them out the right way, their whole act crumbles. Why does this comeback work so well? It cleverly points out their lack of real intelligence without directly insulting them. You're not calling them dumb outright, but you're making it clear that they haven't said anything worthwhile. It flips the power dynamic on its head. Rude people thrive on making others feel small, but this line sends their own game right back at them. If they argue, they just make themselves look even less intelligent. If they stay silent, they're admitting defeat. Either way, you win. When should you use this? When someone constantly interrupts with sarcastic insults trying to belittle you, when a coworker acts superior but never offers anything meaningful, just criticism without solutions, when a friend mocks you but never says anything smart themselves. Some people exist just to throw jabs at others. It's time to put them in their place. The harsh truth is, people who love to mock others usually have nothing valuable to offer themselves. They hide behind sarcasm, thinking it makes them look clever, but really it's just a mask for their insecurities. The best way to deal with them? Expose them. So next time someone who never says anything meaningful tries to act like the smartest person in the room, just hit them with, "If I had $1 for every smart thing you said, I'd be broke." Then watch them struggle for a response. Number 3. I don't argue with people who thrive on disrespect. This isn't just a comeback, it's a statement of power. It says, I see exactly what you're doing and I refuse to engage. Because honestly, some people aren't interested in discussions or exchanging ideas. They just want to stir up trouble, put others down, and boost their own ego. These are the people who never really listen. They just wait for their turn to talk, turning every disagreement into a personal attack. You could say, I prefer tea over coffee, and they'd act like you insulted their whole existence. They brag about being brutally honest, but really they're just being brutal. So why waste your energy arguing with someone who doesn't respect you in the first place? Let me share how I used this line and walked away victorious. There. Was this coworker? Let's call him Jake. Jake wasn't just rude, he thrived on disrespect. It wasn't enough for him to disagree. He had to make people feel small. He'd talk over others in meetings, shoot down ideas without offering alternatives, and sprinkle passive-aggressive insults whenever he could. One day, during a team discussion, I shared a simple idea to improve our workflow. Before I even finished, Jake rolled his eyes and said, "Yeah, because you're such an expert, right?" It was condescending, dismissive, and completely unnecessary. A few years ago, I might have fallen into the trap, explaining myself, justifying my idea, or snapping back. But that day, I wasn't playing his game. I leaned back, looked him straight in the eye, and calmly said, "I don't argue with people who thrive on disrespect." Then I went silent, continuing from the last part, where I stood up to someone who thrived on disrespect. Here's the moment that completely turned the tables. The room went completely silent. You could almost hear people holding their breath. Everyone was waiting for Jake to respond, but he had nothing. If he kept going, he'd only prove me right. If he tried to walk it back, he'd look weak. So he just sat there, clearly uncomfortable, shifting in his seat, trying to think of a comeback. But there wasn't one. And the best part? From that moment on, he never pulled that kind of nonsense with me again. Why is this line so powerful? Because it calls out their behavior without sinking to their level. You're not insulting them. You're simply describing them. And that hurts a lot more. It strips away their control. People like that feed off your emotional reactions. When you don't give them one, they fall apart. Whether they admit it or not, you've just held up a mirror to their face. When should you use this line? When someone constantly tries to pick a fight with you, don't feed their negativity. Starve it. When a coworker or even your boss talks down to you, this line makes it clear you won't tolerate disrespect. When a friend or family member belittles you, some people think they can get away with it just because they're close. Wrong. When a stranger tries to provoke you, not every battle is worth fighting and not every person is worth acknowledging. Here's the hard truth. Some people don't argue to solve anything. They argue just to win. They argue because they enjoy seeing others get upset. They get a twisted sense of satisfaction from pushing your buttons. So what's the best way to respond? Don't. Instead say, "I don't argue with people who thrive on disrespect." And walk away, because the moment they realize they have no power over you, they've already lost. Your attitude isn't going to get you very far in life. This isn't just a comeback, it's a wake-up call. Some people walk around being rude, arrogant, and dismissive, thinking they're crushing it in life. But the truth, that kind of attitude is a one-way ticket to nowhere. Why this line hits? Hard, rude people often mistake arrogance for confidence. They think talking down to others makes them look strong, but life doesn't work that way. Nobody respects someone who treats people poorly. No boss promotes someone who can't collaborate. No one wants to build meaningful relationships with someone who constantly belittles others, and no successful person ever got where they are by running their mouth more than their brain. So when you say, your attitude isn't going to get you very far in life, you're not just shutting them down, you're exposing the future they're heading for. You're forcing them to face the consequences of their own behavior. A personal story, when I used this line and saw it work instantly. Few years ago, I worked with someone we'll call Mark. Mark thought being rude was his personality. He'd talk down to anyone and everyone. If you made a mistake, he'd roll his eyes. If you had a suggestion, he'd shut it down before even listening. His whole thing was making people feel small so he could feel big. One day during a meeting, he snapped at a colleague. Maybe if you actually knew what you were talking about, we wouldn't be wasting time. It made the whole room uncomfortable, but no one spoke up because rude people rely on that. They count on everyone staying silent, but I wasn't going to let it slide, so I looked right at him and said, your attitude isn't going to get you very far in life. The room went still. Mark smirked at first, trying to act unfazed, but as the meeting continued, something changed. He wasn't as loud. He wasn't laughing anymore. For the first time, he looked uncomfortable. Why? Because deep down he knew I was right. And here's the best part. A few months later, when promotions were announced, guess who got passed over? Continuing from the story of Mark, the guy who thought being rude was a personality trait, here's the real takeaway. No matter how talented you are, if people can't stand working with you, you're going nowhere. And that's exactly why the line, your attitude isn't going to get you very far in life, hits so hard. It forces them to zoom out and see the bigger picture. Sure, maybe in the moment they think being condescending makes them powerful. But the real question is, where is that power taking them? Nowhere. This line calls out their self-sabotage, because the truth is, their behavior isn't just irritating, it's quietly destroying every opportunity they might have. And this isn't an insult, it's a fact, and let's be honest, facts cut deeper than insults ever could. When should you use this line? When a coworker is constantly rude and talks down to people, remind them that their attitude will cost them eventually. When a stranger disrespects you in public, some people seriously need a dose of reality. When a family member keeps putting people down just because they're family doesn't mean they get a free pass. When a friend always carries toxic energy, maybe it's time they heard the truth. Final thought. Some people walk through life thinking their bad attitude makes them untouchable. But life has a funny way of humbling those who think they're above everyone else. So next time someone disrespects you, don't yell, don't argue. Just calmly say, your attitude isn't going to get you very far in life. And watch them pause, because deep down, they might just realize they're the real problem. Next up is the line. This conversation was over before it even started. Now this isn't just a comeback. It's a verbal checkmate. The kind of sentence that doesn't just shut down an argument, it deletes the entire chance of one happening. What you're really saying is, you thought this was going to be a battle. Sorry, I'm not even stepping onto the battlefield. Why does this line hit so well? Rude people feed on conflict. They want to poke you, get under your skin, drag you into an argument, because that's where they feel in control. But what happens when you don't play their game? When you show them their words have zero value in your world? They lose all their power. When you say, this conversation was over before it even started, you're doing something powerful. You're taking control. You're showing them they don't get to dictate your emotions or pull your strings. And trust me, nothing frustrates a rude person more than being ignored. Picture this. A bully shoves someone expecting a fight. But instead of reacting, the person walks away with calm indifference. That bully, left standing there powerless, that's exactly what happens here. You deny them the argument, you deny them attention, and in doing so you remind them, your words don't matter to me. That's the ultimate slap in the face, silent but cutting. So why should you use this line? Because it shuts things down before they get out of hand. Because it protects your energy and your peace. Because it sends a clear message, you don't deserve my time. Personal story, how I used this line and ended things instantly. A few years ago I had a co-worker, we'll call him Jake. He was one of those people who had something negative to say about everything. Your ideas, your tone of voice, even how you breathed, it didn't matter. One day during a team meeting, I pitched a new approach for a project. Before I could even finish, Jake smirked and said, "Yeah, or we could just do it the right way." Instead, everyone in the room tensed up. He wanted me to react. He was waiting for me to defend myself or snap back, but I didn't. I calmly looked at him and said, "This conversation was over before it even started." Then I turned back to my work and ignored him completely. The entire room went silent, but the message was loud and clear. Continuing from the last moment with Jake, the guy who thought putting others down was a smart tactic, my calm response clearly threw him off. The room was silent. Jake looked completely blindsided. He tried to save face, to act like it didn't bother him, but it was obvious he was shaken. Why? Because he was expecting a fight. He wanted me to get defensive, to argue, to lose control. But instead, I dismissed him like he didn't even exist. And from that moment on, Jake never pulled that stunt with me again. So when should you use this line? When someone's clearly trying to bait you into an argument, remember, you don't owe them your energy. When a co-worker, boss, or even a casual acquaintance is being passive-aggressive, shut it down before it escalates. When a family member or close friend is being unnecessarily rude, you don't have to entertain their negativity. When a stranger insults you for no reason, some people are just fishing for attention. Don't give them what they want. Final thought. Not every fight deserves your time. Not every insult deserves a reaction. Rude people win when they steal your energy, but they lose the moment you show them just how little they matter. So next time someone tries to drag you into a pointless argument, simply say, "This conversation was over before it even started." And then walk away while they sit there, stunned, realizing they just lost a battle that never began. Now, onto the next powerful line. Thanks for your input. I'll be sure to forget it immediately. It's simple, but it hits like a truck. Why does this line work so well? Because rude people thrive on control. Their goal is to make you feel small, to shake your confidence, to pull you down to their level. But when you respond with this line, you instantly take that control away. Let's face it, most of the time when someone disrespects you, they're not offering anything useful. They're not trying to have a real conversation or give helpful feedback. No, they're just talking to hear themselves talk, and they expect you to bite. But instead of treating their words seriously, you do the opposite. You treat them like they're so insignificant, they're not even worth remembering. That's what makes this comeback so powerful. It acknowledges their effort, just enough to dismiss it entirely. Why this phrase feels like magic? Because it makes their words instantly worthless. Rude people want their words to stick. They want you to replay them in your head, to doubt yourself, to feel small. But when you say, "Thanks for your input, I'll be sure to forget it immediately," you're telling them, "You just wasted your breath. Your words won't live in my mind rent-free, not even for a second." That realization, it stings. It stops them cold. They expected a reaction, anger, defense, maybe even an apology, but instead, you gave them pure indifference. It's a subtle way of saying, "You're not even worth the effort." The silence. After that, that's when they realize they just got played. And here's the bonus, it protects your energy. Some people feed off drama. They love to get under people's skin. But your peace of mind is worth more than their nonsense. Instead of wasting time in a useless back and forth, you drop this line, end the moment, and move on. How this plays out in real life. At work, imagine you've got a co-worker who constantly shoots down your ideas in meetings, not because your ideas are bad, but because they just enjoy being critical. They smirk and say, interesting take, but maybe we should leave the serious ideas to the pros." Instead of getting flustered or defensive, you calmly respond, "Thanks for your input. I'll be sure to forget it immediately." Then, you keep talking, like their words didn't even exist. That one line makes them look foolish, not you with toxic friends or family. Let's say a family member throws shade at your career or life choices. Still chasing that dream of yours? When are you going to get serious about life? You don't need to justify yourself. You don't need to explain your path. Just smile and say, "Thanks for your input. I'll be sure to forget it immediately." Picking up from before, when you calmly shut down someone's rudeness with a simple yet crushing phrase, now it's time to finish the job with a quiet kind of confidence that speaks volumes. Instead of letting their words affect you, you just smile slightly and say, "I appreciate the comment. It's already erased from my mind." Then, with zero drama, you change the subject and move on like nothing happened. That's when it stings the most, because in that moment, they realize something brutal. You don't care. Not about their insult, not about their opinion, not about their attempt to shake you. And that realization hits harder than any argument ever could. When it comes to strangers or online trolls, this line is just as effective. Let's say someone throws an unnecessary jab your way, maybe in public or in a comment section. Don't let it rattle you. Instead, respond casually with, "Oh wow, you really thought that one would land. Thanks for the input. I'll forget it in about 3 seconds." And here's the twist. The more casual and laid back you sound, the more devastating it becomes. There's real psychological power behind this kind of response. You see, rude people run on a simple formula. They throw an insult, you react emotionally. They feel powerful. But when you break that pattern, when you meet their drama with calm dismissal, you completely collapse their system. You take away their reward. You remind them that their words carry zero weight in your world. And now for the next verbal mic drop. You seem really dedicated to making a fool of yourself. Ouch. That one doesn't just cut, it exposes. Some people, they live for conflict. They treat every conversation like a stage to act out their own drama. It's almost like they wake up, look in the mirror and think, "How can I embarrass myself today?" This line flips the entire script. They thought they were embarrassing you. Turns out they were only spotlighting their own nonsense. Why does this line hit so hard? Because it forces a moment of uncomfortable self-reflection, even if they'll never admit it out loud. When someone's being rude, they expect you to be defensive, angry, flustered. But instead, you hit them with, "You seem really dedicated to making a fool of yourself." Now they're thinking, "Wait, am I?" Even if their ego won't, let them say it, the seed is planted. The spotlight is now on them, not you. And if others are around, trust me, they start to notice it too. At that point, the rude person either has to awkwardly backtrack or double down, and either choice just proves your point. You stay calm. You stay in control. And the beauty of it, you don't even have to raise the voice. Here's how to use it in real life. At work, a co-worker keeps interrupting you during a meeting, rolling their eyes, throwing snarky comments left and right. Instead of getting annoyed, you pause, glance at them, and with a slight smirk, say, "You seem really dedicated to making a fool of yourself." Then, you go right back to your point, like they weren't even there. Now they're stuck in that awkward silence or scrambling to defend themselves. Either way, they look worse for it. With a toxic friend or family member, maybe someone throws a passive-aggressive jab like, "Wow, you actually got something right for once." You don't react, you don't explain. You just laugh lightly and say, "You seem really dedicated to making a fool of yourself." And then you keep enjoying your day, leaving them to sit in the weight of their own pettiness. Online or in public, someone's acting obnoxious, trying to drag you into their mess. Don't engage, just comment. "You seem really dedicated to making a fool of yourself. Keep up the hard work." Then log off, walk away, let them stew in the embarrassment they created for themselves. The psychology behind this is powerful. Most rude people, they don't think they're being foolish. They think they're being clever, dominant, in control. But when you expose the truth, that they're actually just embarrassing themselves, it flips the entire dynamic. They lose the illusion of control. And worse, everyone else sees it too. At the end of the day, dealing with rude people isn't about out-insulting them. It's about outclassing them. You don't have to shout. You don't have to argue. And you definitely don't need to take them seriously. Because here's the truth, disrespect only works when you let it get to you. But when you stay composed, drop a sharp line like a boss, and walk away as if their words were never worth your time, that's when it lands. That's when they feel the sting. That's when they realize they wasted all their energy trying to bring you down, only to end up embarrassing themselves instead. So the next time someone disrespects you, don't stoop to their level. Make it crystal clear that their words mean absolutely nothing, and just like that, you win.